This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet world, West Alabama. How are we doing today? This is The Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, BamaCentral.com. You're checking us out on the Bama Central YouTube channel, hanging out with us on my own social media machines at Joe Gaither 6. You can find us right there, or you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on Amazon. The Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. We're right here hanging out in the Derek Daniels State Farm Studios, ready for another Football Friday. We're hanging out with my friend Mason Woods, and we're welcoming our friend Katie Windham. You can follow them all at MA_Woods_ and at Katie Windham _. I don't have the underscore right there in my handle, so I am missing out.
Yeah,
but we're gonna have a lot of fun talking.
The key. Yeah, that unlocks the.
Is that the
big
SEO?
math is. Yeah, that's what it is.
Katie, is the underscore the SEO secret?
You know, I don't know. I'm not a big Twitter expert. It's the when you have a common-ish name, you got to throw it in there. I guess Mason probably has the most common last name of the three of us, but
yeah, there was a lot of variations of MA Woods that were taken, so I had to get a little creative, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you can follow Mason Woods at MA_Woods_. Follow Katie Windham at Katie Windham _. Proud part right here covering Alabama for Alabama Crimson Tide on SI. And Katie's got a big road trip this week. Unbelievable. Ooh. 5.5, 6 hours to go south into Death Valley. Katie's going to lead our team with Hunter DeCiver and Will Miller. And so that will be the focus of our day today. Obviously, it's Football Friday. We will pick the Alabama game at the end. We'll throw in some other bigger games as well. But we want to focus on Garrett Nussmeier once more. We want to focus really on Jalen Milroe today and how we think Jalen Milroe will do in the noise. He didn't really perform that well in Knoxville. Obviously, the noise was not much of a factor in Nashville, but we want to see and discuss how we think he's going to progress, how he might improve, how his performance might improve with a second go-round in Real Deep Noise. And we're going to do all that right here in the Derek Daniels State Farm Studios. We're live right here off of McFarland Boulevard. You can call Derek and his team today at 205-758-3391 for all your insurance needs. Call Red Recent Victoria if you got home, life, or auto insurance needs questions. If you need renter's insurance, you're about to change apartments right here at the end of the semester. You need new renter's insurance. Call Derek Daniel and his team today. Call 205-758-3391. Call and see how much Derek can save you today.
You just mentioning moving right there just brings up night. I hate moving so much.
I haven't done it in a handful of years, and I hope to not do it ever again in my life, but I know that that's just out of the question.
Me and Melissa just recently moved this past August and have been in the place since the beginning of August, and I just now am like finally getting rid of some of the cardboard boxes that we've just had laying around forever, because we no longer live in an apartment where we can just throw things into a beautiful giant dumpster that's out in the parking lot. So I don't have anything to do with all these huge boxes, but finally figured out something to do with them, and I'm going to get rid of all of them today.
There you go. And that's something that will be on Katie's horizon sometime in the future as she prepares for a big life change ahead, and we congratulate her for that. Katie, you looking forward to moving out of the apartment?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I guess where I live could still end up being a possibility, even though I want to move somewhere else. But yeah, I'm not looking forward to the actual moving, but moving into a house would be nice. I mean, I live in a townhouse now, which is very nice, but an actual house with a yard, more space to host, all that fun stuff. It'll be nice. And the very interesting exclusive real estate market.
Oh my goodness gracious! You gotta be moving very fast in Tuscaloosa. Well, that might be our next step, Mason. We got to get a realtor to sponsor this show. I got a couple that I could reach out to. But it is a very difficult market. It is a seller's market. You've got the upper hand if you're selling property here in Tuscaloosa. But we're not a property show. We're not a moving show. We're not any sort of that. We are a football show, and Alabama has a big one. Katie, we haven't had you on since Alabama's shutout, Alabama's big old win over Missouri. So it's been 2 weeks at least, and I don't think we hit. I think it was the Tennessee game was actually the last time that she joined us ahead of that matchup. So what have you thought of the team's progression since the loss in Knoxville? How much of the Missouri performance do you think was real? And really, where do you think this team is going into Baton Rouge?
Yeah, it's weird because we haven't obviously seen that much since the Tennessee game, just the Missouri game, which I'm sure as y'all have talked about, it's kind of hard to judge based on that game. They were without their quarterback for most of it. How good is Missouri really? Obviously, it was encouraging, I think, what you saw from Alabama in that performance. Some things on offense and defense. On offense, that they were able to run the ball really for the first time since the first game of the year. And that wasn't even, obviously against a, Power 5 opponent or Power 4. So, that was encouraging. Jalen didn't throw any interceptions. So that was encouraging. The defense obviously pitched the shutout, was able to get off the field on third downs. And yeah, the Missouri offense wasn't great, but they've also not been able to get off the field against some other offenses that weren't necessarily great, or against teams that they should have been able to at least somewhat control the line of scrimmage and weren't able to. So, yeah, there were some good things in the Missouri game, but obviously, as I'm sure you all have talked about all week, this Saturday is really going to be the test, okay, of have they improved in these areas, or, was it a fluke, and kind of really more, which what we talked about with the coaches at the very beginning of the week, which Monday feels like so long ago. For some reason, this week has been long, I guess, because of basketball too. Like you hit on at the top of the show, they haven't played well in their first two SEC road games, which Vanderbilt, you can't attribute that to crowd noise at all. I think Tennessee you can a little bit, but it also was, I remember watching back that game and texting you while I was watching it, and it's just Jalen's demeanor the whole game, even when he's on the sideline. So I don't think it was just noise. I think he was just so in his head in that game. And so is he going to be able to snap out of that? Because we have seen him play well on big stages against LSU last year. Obviously that was at home, but he has done it before. And so the way that the rest of the schedule lines up for Alabama, obviously this is the big game left on it, and it's on the road. So can they get over that hump on the road and play well?
Mason, listening to Katie, I just got a feeling. She just triggered a memory. What do you think about going back to last year's Alabama performance at Texas A&M?
Kind of where I was going.
Where you are throwing to Jermaine Burton. Jermaine Burton's really a dog in that game and making some plays, and Jalen is playing really confidently in that game. And it's basically dealing in the face of a lot of noise. Katie was there in that, and obviously you did have kind of a bad interception right in the middle of the game that the defense was at Caleb Downs got right back. But other than that, it was a pretty confident Jalen Milroe in the face of a talented defense in the midst of a big crowd. How do you feel about the parallels between what we saw last year at Texas A&M and what we might see tomorrow?
I think that Texas A&M team and this LSU team are different. Just the way they play, obviously. But I do think Alabama can maybe use that as a bit of a guideline for what they want to kind of get from this game. I think, you mentioned Jermaine Burton as being an important piece in that game, and I think maybe this could be an opportunity for Jalen Milroe for someone else on the offense to kind of be that Jermaine Burton this game and step up in a spot where they are really needed here. Hopefully that's like a Kendrick Law. We'll see. But, I think this game, if they do like what we've been talking about all week and hammer the run game a bit to allow themselves to open up the passing game a little more and not just try to force it so much, maybe someone else can step up in that role and kind of have a big game.
Now, totally different offense, obviously, the Tommy Reese offense to the Kalen DeBoer offense, but Jalen Milroe last year, 21 of 33, 321, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. And then obviously on the ground, it was not that good. He was 8 carries for minus 31 yards. You count the sack yardage, he had a long of only 12 yards. Alabama, 26 carries, only 23 yards on the ground when you attribute the sack yardage. I guess if you add the 31, there was 50-something yards and change. So not a great game on the ground, but Jalen really showed, I guess, that it is in him, Katie, to play well on the road.
Yeah, or in big games. Like he played well in the SEC championship game last year. He played well against Georgia this year. And so that's why the Tennessee game this year was just so weird to me, because I think we all saw it in the first couple of drives. It's like, ooh, Jalen doesn't look good. Maybe he just needs to settle in. And then it just never happened. And it was just the whole game, sailing throws, locking in on a guy, not making the right decision with the ball, holding on to it too long. And it's like you would think or hope at this point in his career that he's still not making those mistakes. And so maybe you do just chalk it up to a really weird day for him. Just his head wasn't in the right space. And I think this week, coming off a bye, they've had 2 weeks to get ready for this game, which LSU has as well. But you've had 2 weeks to lock in, get focused, really think about what's on the line for this team. There's some of the fifth years on this team that have won a national championship, like Malachi Moore and Jamarian Latham. But other than that, which Milrose, I guess he's a redshirt junior, right? So this is his 4th year in the program.
Right.
It had been under Saban that every guy that stayed for 4 years won at least one title. And which obviously Saban is no longer the coach. These are still a lot of the guys that he recruited, and that's on the line this year. And I obviously this team is not a favorite to win the national championship at this point in the season, but their chances of even being able to compete for it are essentially gone if they lose this weekend. And so I think those guys know that, whether they tell us that they've looked at the playoff rankings or look at all that stuff or not, they're aware of that they can't lose again. I remember 2 years ago in LSU, after Alabama lost, the only players they brought out were Bryce and Will Anderson, who went on to become captains, and just how dejected both of them were, because they both knew it was their last season at Alabama, both going to be first-round draft picks, and I think they ended up 5th in the final college football playoff poll, but because that was back when it was the 4 team that was their second loss, they pretty much weren't going to have the chance to compete for a national championship, and they ended up not being able to have one. And I remember just how dejected they were after that game because it was gone. And so I think this team knows that. And so kind of what they step up and answer that call of, okay, they've talked about their backs being against the wall, but then they say, oh, our backs are always against the wall. We're Alabama. It's like, you're kind of always the hunted, but I wouldn't say your back's always up against the wall, but it is right now. And so you do have to win this game if you want to keep your hopes of the playoff alive. And I think obviously Jalen, as the quarterback, as someone who's been up and down this season, is going to be a key part of that for Alabama on Saturday.
Yeah, Jalen Milroe is exactly where I wanted to kind of go back to. And you mentioned that Tennessee game, and I'm looking at it now. He did play bad that game. It's pretty obvious. We all watched it, and there was a notable, sort of attitude shift from the earlier games in the season. It seemed like where he just, like you said, just kind of felt dejected or looked dejected from the start of the game to the end of it. And I'm, sitting here kind of thinking, that's the only game this season where he threw the ball 45 times. Was that a bit of a result of Kalen DeBoer over scheming that game and just thinking like, oh, we have to throw the ball? He didn't have to throw the ball that many times. I wonder if that game so negatively affected Jalen's confidence because he asked him to do something that is not really in his wheelhouse. And it seems like it had, a lot more of a negative effect than only being a loss in the, loss column.
I'm comfortable with the 33 throws that Alabama asked him to do at Texas A&M, but 47, what did you say, 47 at Tennessee?
45.
Maybe.
I'm looking down his game log here. It's 26 attempts, 23, 24, 33 against Georgia, 17, 26, and then 45 jumps out right there against Tennessee. They very obviously asked him to do something pretty different that game, and it did not work out very well. Everybody brushed over it. Every single person brushed over it. Oh, everybody's dinged up at this point of the year. Tyler Brooker, nobody. We're all. Nobody's 100%. Do you think that it just lends credence to he was hurt in the fact that we're not going to run him? And maybe, I don't know, somebody else was hurt. Yeah.
A running back was hurt.
Yeah, it's something, I don't know. Something happened that game. I think, obviously I'm just box
you're in the game the whole time. So it wasn't like you were behind by like a million points and you're trying to throw.
It's very odd. I just wonder what, kind of, happened to the offensive staff that game that had them thinking they needed to go out and throw the ball 45. I know there were a bunch of loaded boxes, a bunch of, they faced a lot of
that
8-man
happened a
boxes,
lot.
sure. But I just don't really understand it. I don't know. That game is just a bit of an outlier to me, and I'm wondering if it, not only was a loss for the team, but it really negatively affected Jalen Milroe's confidence.
Katie, I asked Mason this past week if the Missouri game will result in maybe a positive shift from the coaching staff offensively in featuring more jam and justice and utilizing Jalen Milroe a bit less and thus allowing him to maybe surprise defenses a little bit more as they have to focus in on jam and justice as they did this past week against Missouri. Do you think that maybe there's a chance that there might be a shift offensively after this past week's performance?
I mean, it's definitely possible. You would think you would stick with what was working. I think LSU's defense is probably better, at least more talented than Missouri. So
better, but they're not performing better. Missouri was seventh in the country.
For LSU the last couple of years, I feel like.
Yeah.
Where that they have talented guys but aren't always putting together the best defense, which is very different from the early 2010s Alabama-LSU games where it's just two of the best defenses in the country going at it and good luck scoring. And now it's kind of probably going to be a more high-scoring game. But, yeah, I mean, you would think they would take from what's working or what worked for them against Missouri. There's been various points throughout this season where the coaches have talked about some of the stuff they're holding back in the playbook or whatever. And you also would think, though, that at Tennessee, when you're not playing well and need to win, that you would not be holding anything back anymore and would be doing whatever it takes to win. So, yeah, I think you want to see Alabama be more dedicated to the run on Saturday, being willing to stick with it on early downs, but also like a huge key, and I don't know how much y'all have talked about this week, but I just thought about this with wanting to run the ball on early downs is Alabama cannot get behind the chains like they have in the other road games, but also in the home games. Noise was a factor in Tennessee. I think I looked and they had 4 pre-snap penalties in the first half against Tennessee, and they did kind of settle in the second half. But it's Alabama was one of the most penalized teams in the country, even at home. So it's like they've got to keep themselves out of the situations where they're behind the chains, because that really is handicapping them so much on offense. I think that was part of why they had to throw so much against Tennessee, is because they were getting behind the chains. Then it's like, well, you got to throw. Whereas
second and 12,
they were getting negative plays on first down when they ran the ball. So it's you got to run block better. Or, I don't know, draw up better plays. I'm not a Nexus Nose expert like you, Joe, but
just got to keep hammering it.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be a big key for Alabama is in games where they've struggled offensively, it's because they're getting behind the chains so often in 2nd and 12, and 3rd and 11, and 3rd and 15, and 2nd and 21. And that's not going to work well in Tiger Stadium.
Ole Miss, Ulysses Bentley, 11 carries, 107 yards, and a touchdown. He did take a long of 50 yards. He popped a 50-yard run. Harry Parrish Jr., they're back. They're really the starter. 14 carries, 42 yards with a long of 17. All right, Texas A&M. Texas A&M, Le'Veon Moss, 14 carries, 83 yards, and 2 touchdowns with a long of 25. And his buddy Armani Daniels, 12 carries, 91 yards. This is from the running backs, right? And obviously you got Marcel Reed, who came in and did his thing in the second half, 9 carries, 62 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But take it all the way back. How about South Carolina? Rocket Sanders, 19 carries, 143 yards, and 2 touchdowns with a long of 66 yards. Like, LSU has shown that if you're just patient with it, and look, jam and justice is every bit as good as Rocket Sanders. I mean, Rocket's probably the best running back in the SEC, 1 or 2, right?
Jarquez Hunter, maybe.
Jarquez Hunter, yeah, he's in there. Yeah. But jams and justice are there in that class. Just gonna have to be patient with it on Saturday. I think you do that, you take a lot of pressure off Jalen Milroe, and then you allow him to just really hurt some teams with Ryan Williams. That's what I'm hopeful. So my next question, Katie, is to you on two fronts. We talked, and you said on maybe the Wednesday of the Tennessee game, and you're a genius, Joe. You think Coach DeBoer might take the ball if they win the toss so they can start driving and get up 7-0, try to get up a score? I said, man, yeah, that might be a good strategy, and that's exactly what they did. Unfortunately, he took the ball, and just as you said, just as you outlined in your last answer, then got a pre-snap penalty, took a sack, took a first down run. It was a sack. It was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
They were behind the chains like in a heartbeat, and they punted from James Burnip's heels were on the goal line.
They punted 10 seconds into the game.
Right. James Burnip's heels were on the goal line. That's how backed up they got it in so quickly. And so boom, the strategy goes out the window. So the first part of the question is, do you think that Coach DeBoer would try it again if Alabama wins the toss? You think they'll take the ball? And then the second part of the question is, Jalen Milroe on the road at Vanderbilt, you get the unlucky pick. It's pick six. You get the fumble. At Tennessee, you get the pick in the end zone. And I guess the pick at the end counts as well, but who cares? Do you think that Jalen Milroe can play a clean game and play a no turnover game, no matter what the other stats are? Bad rushing game, who cares? Bad passing game, who cares? No turnovers. Do you think Coach DeBoer would take the ball? And do you think Jalen Milroe can play a zero turnover game?
Yeah, it's interesting because I wrote about it at the beginning of this week. A lot of the coaches, Kalen and Nick Sheridan talked about the importance of starting fast on the road. So it's like you obviously anytime you want to have the first lead and then never give it up. And when I went and looked at it, Alabama's only scored, period, on their first drive against Georgia and South Carolina. So twice in 8 games. That's not a very good rate. You know, you think back to a couple of years ago with Tua, and it's like they probably scored on the first play twice in the first 8 games. So it's different. Like they have not had a lot of success because the first games of the year, Western Kentucky, I think the first 3 games this season. Well, no, the first 2 games, I think they went 3 and out. And then Wisconsin, they drove down the field and I think that was Nicholson's first attempt and he missed it.
Yeah.
So I guess they did have a scoring drive their first game on the road, but then had to settle for a field goal and missed it. But generally haven't been great at the beginning of games. So it's like, yeah, do they take that opportunity and try and score first? I don't think they do this time. I think in a game like this where it could potentially be high scoring, you want the ball to start the second half. Like that way, if you're down or if you're ahead, you can kind of build on that lead. But I don't think with all the emphasis they supposedly put on starting fast, obviously I don't think it'd be a bad thing if they get the ball first and are actually able to go and score and give yourself a little breathing room. Because really last time Alabama played at LSU, and that was when Bryce Young was the quarterback, didn't they not score a touchdown until the fourth quarter? Am I completely misremembering that? Like
it was late. Wasn't it 10-0?
Feels right.
Wasn't it a 10-0 game?
Score ended up being like higher because it did go to overtime, but I think a bunch of scoring happened in the fourth quarter. It was like a weird game. Let's see. So like if Alabama could go out, score right away, that's going to take. Yeah, they didn't score a touchdown until the fourth quarter. They were down 14-9 heading in. They had scored 3 field goals. Didn't score in the first quarter. Roydell had the touchdown to go up 15-14. Then there was a Corey touchdown. Will Riker tied it. 21 seconds left to go to overtime. So yeah, I think that would be huge for this offense, huge for this defense. If the offense can give them a lead, and you even just talking about LSU, some of their past stats of the running, how other teams have done against them running the ball. This is a weird LSU team. Yes, they have the same record as Alabama, but they lost to USC, who's just had a horrible season from that point on, basically. And then they lost to who's the other team they lost to? LSU.
Texas A&M.
Yeah, right. Last time out, they got killed, and then they barely beat South Carolina and Ole Miss, which those are both good teams. They had to come back, but yeah, they didn't play well in those games, and they could very easily be 4-4. Which you could say the same thing for Alabama in some respects. But it's a weird LSU team. And so I think if you have the opportunity to jump ahead, that would be good. But I think they're probably going to defer the ball, especially because of how it backfired last time of them taking it first. And then, which to the defense's credit, after they had that bad series on offense to start the game, the defense got to stop. The defense shut out Tennessee in the first half. So it wasn't like, it didn't send the team into a spiral of them not scoring on that first drive, but it didn't give them the advantage it could have. And obviously that was the theme of that Tennessee game, was missed opportunities, especially with all the Tennessee turnovers in the first half. And so to the second question of, can Jalen not turn the ball over? I don't know. I think that's going to be key. He didn't throw any interceptions last week after he'd thrown multiple interceptions in back-to-back games, which I think when I went and checked, he'd only done that one time all of last year, throwing multiple interceptions in a game. And so generally in his career, he's been pretty good at it. This season, not as good, but also Nussmeier has thrown a ton of interceptions. So I think that's something else I've written about this week, is that's something the defense is going to be hunting for. Something they've been doing well lately is getting turnovers. And so, I can't predict what Jalen's going to do, but I think it'll be huge for this team, this offense, if he doesn't turn the ball over on Saturday. And I think you said something about Ryan Williams earlier, which made me think that's a big element of Alabama's game that's been missing the last couple of weeks, is the deep ball threat. That was basically all the offense was the first couple of weeks. So will the receivers be able to create separation? Will Alabama be able to get those big chunk plays that have been missing that'll kind of maybe help settle Jalen in, to where Mason talked about at Tennessee, it wasn't maybe his game with all the pass attempts, but it's like, can he get settled into his game, his rhythm, with maybe some big plays against LSU? And we've seen times this year, sorry to keep rambling, but that Alabama's been good at kind of scripting some of their series. And so Nick Sheridan's had 2 weeks to work on stuff. If they do get the ball first, whether they win the toss and take it or LSU to first, will they have a good series scripted up, and will they be able to execute that series will kind of be a big deal.
We're hanging out with Mason Woods and Katie Windham right here on Football Friday as we continue to talk about Alabama and LSU. Let me tell you about the most reliable residential roof replacement company in Alabama and Mississippi, Purple Turtle Roofing. Whether it's addressing leaks, storm damage, or general wear and tear, Purple Turtle Roofing is going to be there to deliver exceptional roof repair for your property. They're the leading expert in local residential roofing solutions, specializing in providing unparalleled service and quality craftsmanship for all your roof replacement needs. Call Dustin Foley and his team today at 877-PT-ROOF-5 for your free roof inspection. That's 877-787-6635 to schedule your appointment, and one of their qualified employees will come check out your roof for free and make sure you're prepared for any and all of life's storms. You can check them out online today at roofturtle.com. Mason Woods, we're going to make you defensive coordinator for 30 seconds. You get to take away one of LSU's skill position players. Are you taking away Kyron Lacey? Are you taking away Mason Taylor? Or are you taking away Aaron Anderson? You can just erase this player from the game plan. The rest you take your chances with. What's the move for you?
I think the pick that, a lot of people would be maybe quick to make is the flashy one, Kyron Lacey. Obviously, he's probably going to be a first-round pick this year. I think most people would agree. But I'm going to go Mason Taylor. And I'm going to tell you, and I think it's because I have a lot of confidence in Damani Jackson's ability. I think he is going to perform very well against Kyron Lacey. And I think we talked about this yesterday. That does not mean that Kyron Lacey is going to have 0 catches for 0 yards. He might go for 3-4 catches, 40, 50 yards. That's fine, But if Mason Taylor's not in the game, if there's no, just safety net for Garrett Nussmeier to dump the ball off to underneath, if there's nobody that presses these linebackers up the seam and forces them to cover, give me that all day. I think that would completely dismantle LSU's offense. I don't think they'd be able to do anything really without him there. I think he's very, very important for what they do offensively.
I knew I loved you for a reason, because that's the correct answer. Because that's the most dangerous man for Alabama. Because if you can allow the little option routes against Jahad Campbell, against Deontay Lawson, and those are good athletes, but Mason Taylor's just going to get his. If you can take that away, sure, you live and die with what Damani's going to give you. That's fine. And in the slot, Aaron Anderson, he's probably going to get you a couple catches, but you live and die with what Devontae Smith and Malachi Moore are going to be able to give you in those matchups. And sure, you'll get a little bit of Malachi on Mason Taylor, but it's really just a size. It's a matchup problem because he's an elite tight end.
Yes.
And look, Alabama has not seen an elite tight end this year. You haven't seen an elite tight end since last December in Atlanta, and you did well, but you also had Caleb Downs out there who could be almost a cheat code.
Everything, man.
Yeah, against that. Katie, what are your memories of Mason Taylor catching the 2-point conversion down in Baton Rouge and winning that game to give Brian Kelly his first win over Alabama?
I'm pretty sure I was still up in the press box. That's the only field storming that I wasn't already down on the field because the game went to overtime. It was so close. We were all still up there working. And so I remember seeing them line up and thinking, wow, he's going for it. And surely Alabama will be able to get a stop with the game on the line, and they weren't able to. And then the fans rushed the field, and then it was a big pain to try and get to that post-game press conference that I talked about earlier where Bryce and Will were real dejected because we had to go down and then cross the sea of people to get to the other side of the field. But, it obviously was a gutsy call for Brian Kelly and worked out and made Tiger fans real happy with him that night. And I think if he loses this game on Saturday, they're not going to be so happy with him at this point in the season because he'll be, year 3 in, and they're not going to have made the playoffs any of the years he's been here, which I think with the 12-team playoff programs like Alabama and LSU both kind of expect to be in, or definitely at least in the mix with how often they were in the mix in the BCS and the 4-team playoff.
When do the Tiger fans turn on Brian Kelly? How long does it take?
Oh, if you're not in the playoff this year, it's going to get hot. She's exactly right.
I think so too.
She's exactly right. It's going to get hot if they're not in the playoff this year. This game is hugely important. This game is, Coach DeBoer can survive. Coach DeBoer's got plenty of time.
Yes,
he can take a lot, but it's very important for Alabama to win as well because you want to establish that nothing slipped, nothing's changed. But for Coach Kelly, after you've lost to USC, you left yourself almost no outs. You went to A&M, and that's not a horrible loss. They're having a really good year, but you got to win the rest of them. You got to. What's the best win on LSU's schedule? Ole Miss at home, and is that the resume booster?
That's what you want to hang your hat on,
right?
I don't want to.
What would that be? A 9-3? You lost to Alabama, A&M, and USC. You're out. Sorry, and the seat is getting warm.
Him and his family. They might be looking for a new home soon.
Mason, do you know the last time that LSU won back-to-back games against Alabama in Baton Rouge? What year were you born?
99.
Okay, perfect. Keep going. Do you know the last time that
I don't.
Katie, do you know? Have you seen it this week?
I saw this stat yesterday on social media, but I don't remember what it was. Alabama's only lost there 10 times ever or something. So
traditionally very strong there. The last time LSU won back-to-back games was 2004 and 2006.
Yeah, that was right before I started really paying attention to anything. I was a child of Saban. Once he came to town, it was like, oh, okay, football is cool.
Football is cool.
I was at the that 2002 game in Baton Rouge that Alabama won, I think 31-0 over Saban. That was one of my first road games ever. Here's you want to see. Well, you can't really see, but
This is my favorite game of the year every year. I love this game so much.
Oh, it's gonna be nuts. Katie, we did 3 players to watch yesterday. I picked Jam. I picked Jam Miller. I picked C.J. Dupree, and I picked Jahad Campbell. Mason took
I took Damani, Kendrick Law, and I think Justice.
Yes. It's okay if you don't have 3, but do you have maybe 1 or 2 that you think these are my guys that really need to have a good game, or I think really might stand out against LSU?
I think anyone that's involved in the pass rush maybe a Q Robinson or anyone up on the defensive line, because LSU has been so good at not giving up sacks because they have some real talent along the offensive line, some first-day NFL talent. So if Alabama can put pressure on Nussmeier, if they can actually sack him and put him in those negative situations, but that's not as likely, but just put pressure on him to force him to make mistakes, I think that's going to be big. So maybe a Q Robinson, who's been one of Alabama's best pass rushers this season. And then I like y'all's picks with some of the guys y'all picked. I mean, I think Kendrick Law is big, kind of had overall, I would say, probably a disappointing season compared to preseason expectations. Maybe I think if you go back to my preseason superlatives, I think I picked him to be the leading receiver, which was obviously a bad take by me, underestimating what Ryan Williams would be. And he hasn't been anywhere close to that, which he did miss some time with some injury. But if Alabama can get him involved in the offense in other ways, I think that's big. And then, Joe, what did we talk about last time on that show before Tennessee? What could be a game changer would be if Alabama can make their field goals or not. And so we've seen some big field goal moments for Alabama in Baton Rouge, and we've seen some rough ones. So, and just in general, an Alabama-LSU game. So will Graham Nicholson be ready to make field goals if his number is called upon in Death Valley on Saturday?
Gun to your head, 49 yards, left hash, Mason Woods, into the half, you're tied. Tie game, 10-10. Graham Nicholson, does he make or miss? He's nailing it. He's nailing it. Oh, I'm taking miss.
I have faith.
I'm still
nailing it.
Katie, 49 yards, left
49
hash.
yards. Miss. I don't
Into the half, tie game,
Man.
10-10.
I don't have to put any money on it, right?
No.
Just your life with the gun to your head.
Yeah, I can play with that, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd say miss at 49 yards.
Yes, I want to have confidence.
Oh, I don't.
I don't
have any
confidence.
one that long.
Oh, man.
I just
I do. What is it about
past 43 yards? I have zero confidence.
You know, obviously Will Reichard was fantastic. I don't want to take anything away
Do I have
from
the
him,
Alabama kicker yips back in my soul?
What is it about it? Like I don't understand.
I feel like what is it? 2013.
I was
14?
watching a compilation this morning, going back watching like just old Alabama-LSU highlights, seeing all those missed field goals from the years.
Foster.
Oh.
2008 was it? They missed a field goal at the end of regulation which Alabama ended up winning, but chip shot to win the game. Lee Tiffin misses it. It goes to overtime. Alabama wins, which was really one of Saban's first really big wins. Alabama, I think, clinched the West that day. Yeah. But a chip shot field goal they missed, which in 2014, they have the chip shot at the end to send it to overtime. He does make it. Not Lee Tiffin, obviously. It wasn't still him 6 years later, but we've seen some ups and downs in Baton Rouge.
I almost had James Burnip on my three players just because of special teams, but I just had no. Oh shoot! I had one more thing to get to before I wanted to go to picks. What was it? Katie was saying something, and I was about to build off of it. It's too late now, right?
Sorry for interrupting. Graham Nicholson.
No, you weren't interrupting. I just
Robinson, the pass rush.
Oh yes, thank you. Perfect. Thank you very much. Mind reader, she's amazing. Follow her at Katie Windham _. You look at the LSU's pass rush ability to protect Garrett Nussmeier. You've seen 4 sacks, and you see, oh my gosh, what the wow. You see, third in the nation. What? How? That's a little gamed. That number's a little gamed. I watched all of the A&M game, and I watched large chunks of pretty much the USC game, the Ole Miss game, the South Carolina game, and what was the other one? All right. So I watched large chunks of these other games. And Garrett Nussmeier, part of this, yes, the offensive line is good. The other issue is he's getting the ball out really fast, which is good quarterback. Great job. So 2 big check marks. But the games part to me is because he's such a good quarterback, I think he feels pressure really well. And I think he moves and throws the ball away. moves, throws it in the dirt, moves, and gets rid of it. And so he's going to take a hit on his completion percentage because he's just saving the down, right? Or he's just getting on to the next down. And so you're not getting the sack. You're not getting the 4-yard, the 6-yard, the 8-yard loss. And so, yes, that's a positive for the quarterback as well. But are you not taking 2nd and 10? Right, and you're just moving on to the next pass rushing situation. Like, all right, we'll take a wash on that play.
All you want,
like,
buddy.
keep it going, just keep it going. Like, okay, you see the 4 sacks, but it's not like he hasn't been under pressure this year. That's my point. There's been pressure moments, and like you see, okay, I wrote about the interceptions today and kind of where went into it. A lot of it was simulated pressures. I'm going to show 4. I'm rushing 3. They're twisting as well. The picture's changing. Oh, I'm showing 6, dropping back into cover. All kinds of just movements after the snap. Really not a lot of consistencies in what the picture was doing because obviously it changed team to team to team. But I just thought a lot of, okay, he's good. He's a good quarterback. He's got a lot of weapons. But I think that Alabama, and that's what Katie triggered me on, with the pass rushers. I think that with the Q Robinson, with Jamarian Latham, with James Smith, I think you might want to keep your eye on 23 this week. Yeah, I think you'll be able to move the defenders around, move the defensive line around, get a lot of twists, get a lot of movement in games, and utilize Jahad Campbell and Deontay Lawson's ability. And Malachi Moore, you've seen Devontae Smith come off. Well, it was Keon Sabb come off the edge.
Deontay Smith, though, he's a thumper.
So, yeah, I think the whole point, and to summarize before we move on to make our picks, I think there's going to be opportunities to really move Nussmeier off his spot and see what he does under pressure.
Which, I mean, the defensive coaching staff has had 2 weeks an extra week to look at all the LSU film and try and find ways to exploit all that. So we'll see if they're able to on Saturday.
This is where Kane Womack earns it.
Yeah, I think it's a big week for him. I think there's a lot of opportunities. All right, so we're at 42 minutes. Let's go through some of these bigger games and make some picks and round out a Football Friday, and we'll have maybe like a 2-sentence thought on basketball because Alabama basketball is back in action tonight. But first, before we tell you that, we want to thank our friends at Druid City Music Hall for sponsoring the program. They're the premier place for live music on the Strip. Last night they had Austin Snell, but if you want to go see some action tonight down there on the Strip, Charles Wesley Godwin will be performing at 8 o'clock. And then there's going to be shows again next week. Next Thursday, Evan Horner. And next Friday, Josiah and the Bonnevelles are going to be performing. So you can check them out online, druidcitymusichall.com/shows for their entire lineup, filling out the calendar all the way through the end of November, Thursdays and Fridays, concerts down on the Strip, Druid City Music Hall. You can check them out online, druidcitymusichall.com. And we appreciate Derek Daniel for sponsoring the program. You can call him today at 205-758-3391 for all of your insurance needs. Call and see how much Derek can save you today. Mason, we messed up a little bit last week by saying it was a boring week. It was a boring week on paper, but upsets were all over the place. The number 11 team, Iowa State, and Clemson lost.
Did not
see that
coming.
Georgia on the ropes. It ended up being a great week of college football last week. So with 4 weeks left to go, right? 5 weeks left to go, we won't say any of these weeks the rest of the way are bad weeks. How about we start, though, with – do we care about Florida, Texas, 11 o'clock on ABC? Texas is going to smoke them. 21.5-point favorite.
I think it depends if do we know if DJ Lagway is playing or not?
He's been at practice.
That's what I saw that he practiced yesterday.
But
so
I'm not sure if he's going to play.
I think he makes a massive difference on if he plays or not. That's a big difference. I don't think Florida can win necessarily, but I would maybe consider them to cover if he's playing.
How about Florida backing Billy Napier for at least the rest of the year and
DJ
beyond?
Lagway is a big reason why. I think with him on the field, they look like a completely different team.
Yeah, and I think they want to keep him
Got
around.
a little bit of juice about him.
Napier go, he may go with him to another school. Not follow Napier, but just leave Florida.
That's true.
Yeah. Might still.
So let's start actually with Georgia at Ole Miss.
This
Georgia
is a fun one.
two big road tests already. They're 1-1. They nearly pulled the rabbit out of the hat right here in Tuscaloosa, but they went into Austin and spanked Texas. So they are, what do I have? 2.5 points. Is this easy money? The Georgia Bulldogs on the road. Now, look, they were tested last week by the Florida Gators.
Yeah.
Will Jackson Dart and company, they beat the brakes off of Arkansas last week. What was it, 63-20-something? 61-23, I think it was. Jackson Dart threw like 500 some odd yards. Is anybody brave enough to take Lane Kiffin, #transfer to the SIP? Katie, will you do it for me?
No, I'm going with Georgia. If it's, unless Georgia's playing Alabama, that seems to be Kirby Smart's kryptonite. I'm just going to pick the Bulldogs. And then conversely, Lane Kiffin has not really won a lot of these big games at Ole Miss when they have their opportunities. So, and let's be honest, the Grove is famous for tailgating. It's a great scene in Oxford, but it's not necessarily a super intimidating environment. I'm sure there will be a lot of Georgia fans there too. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Georgia.
Yeah,
Lane Train.
I can't. It's going to be Georgia, and I really, honestly, I don't think it's going to be particularly close.
No.
I think Georgia's going to win this by a few scores.
Kirby's going to be foaming at the mouth.
Yeah, I think Ole Miss's only hope is if we get yet another Carson Wentz or
Carson Wentz,
Carson Beck game where he throws 3 interceptions, and maybe Ole Miss can get some big shots down the field. But no, I feel pretty confident that Georgia covers that 2.5 very, very easily.
Yes,
and they're going to send Ole Miss crying. Although, for the chaos scenario, I would love to see Ole Miss win.
It's the Georgia Vice that's just going to go into
and just choke them out.
Exactly. They're gonna pin the Rebels up against the wall, and they're just gonna choke them out until they're done. And Kirby's just gonna be like, keep choking them. He's just gonna. We're hungry. We're here to hunt. We didn't come to Oxford to party.
That 2.5 is.
We didn't come to the Grove to party.
That's crazy.
We came to hunt. Black bears. That's what we're after. Land sharks.
Man. Yeah. Give me Georgia, and give me Georgia heavy.
Oh, all right. So let's keep going. I think this is an interesting game, and you may not. But Michigan is at Indiana. Michigan has had a tough season, rough quarterback play, 5-4 on the year, but they're at Indiana. Indiana's a 14.5-point favorite. Next week, what makes it interesting is next week. Next week, Indiana goes to Ohio State. Excuse me. Is there any chance, Mason, that they might be overlooking the defending?
This is the trap game. They are absolutely going to overlook Michigan. Michigan has been, I'm not going to say a laughing stock this year. They're still a respectable team, but they are a shell of what they were last season. No one respects Michigan this year.
And they don't have your signs. They don't have anybody's signs, though.
Sure, yeah, whatever. We can get into that if you want to, but look, Kirsten is a great coach, and I think he is doing everything in his power to get this team to focus on Michigan, likely. But yes, this is the trap game for Indiana. This is when it finally comes crashing down to earth, and you drop 2 games back to back, Michigan, and then you lose next week to Ohio State too. I hate it. I love the story. I think Kirsten is still a fantastic coach. Should be coach of the year this year. But this is when it comes down.
Katie Windham, look me up. I'm a winner. Kirk Cignetti, is he going to keep it going?
I think he is. I haven't really watched Indiana this year, but from some of the other college football podcasts I listen to kind of keep me up to date with the rest of the college football landscape, it seems like this team's pretty locked in. They maybe feel a little disrespected about where they are in the rankings, being undefeated. So, and then Michigan just has not been great this year, doesn't have a great quarterback situation, as you hit on. So I'm going to go with the Hoosiers at home, but then I do think they'll inevitably lose to Ohio State next week.
I'm with Katie. I think Cignetti's going to have them fired up and ready to go.
I hope for their sake that they win this game.
Laser focus.
I feel it. I just feel it in my gut. This is an Indiana overlooking Michigan.
He's going to be able to say, well, if it was any name other than Michigan across the chest, you could.
Yeah.
If it was Michigan State, yes, I see it. But because it was one of the powers of the conference, we're going to be able to get it. These guys have put you down for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I want to see an Indiana win because I'm here for that undefeated versus one loss matchup. where, like you both said, I think Ohio State will probably win comfortably.
If they beat Ohio State, maybe they'll knock them out of the picture.
They might. I think that game is in. That Ohio State game is probably Indiana's playoff game. If they win, they should be in at that point because that quells any question that anybody has about their season because they haven't played anybody up to now. So, but I don't know. I got a bad feeling. If I would be very worried if I was an Indiana fan.
All right, 2 more out-of-conference games. I'm taking Indiana as well. 2 more out-of-conference games before we look all through the SEC slate. Washington is at Penn State. Penn State needing to bounce back. Penn State is a 13.5-point favorite at home, 7 o'clock on Peacock. We're thinking, Washington has struggled.
Yeah, Penn State
by, we were taking the spread.
I think so. That's what I would take. I think this is prime time for James Franklin to say, "Look, I'm still a great coach. I can win."
Yeah,
and they'll go out and smoke them, and everybody will be, "Oh, yeah, Penn State, great!" Yeah, this is exactly this. They do it every year.
Yeah, I'm going
be no
Penn
different.
State too. It's kind of like talking about Kirby. As long as it's not Alabama, it's really James Franklin. As long as it's not Ohio State or a top 5 Michigan team.
As long as it's not a big game.
They should win, especially at home.
Last one that we're paying attention to out of conference is, it should be a huge win for Boise State. Nevada is at Boise State. Nevada's only 3-7. They're 0-4 in Mountain West. Boise State, 24-point favorite. The only reason we're paying attention to it is playoff implications. Ashton Genty, how many rushing yards will he go for? Mason Woods.
Ooh, I wonder what his line's at this week. If I had to just put a number on it,
233. That's just what came into my head.
I'd say he goes over 200. I'd say 215.
There you go. Everybody taking the Boise State Broncos, I'm sure.
They should win comfortably.
All right, let's look at the SEC. We already talked Georgia, Ole Miss. All 3 of us taking the Dogs. Unfortunate.
I think it's obvious what the game of the week is.
Right. Well, Florida,
South Carolina, Vanderbilt.
Florida, Texas. We're all taking Texas. Texas, 21.5-point favorite. Mason Woods, you hit it on the head. South Carolina is at Vanderbilt. The powerhouse Commodores, number 24 in the country. South Carolina is a 5.5-point road favorite. Katie Windham, when will they learn?
I know, like disrespecting Diego Pavia like that at home. That's pretty crazy. It's tough. This is a tough game. Alabama's obviously faced both these teams this year. And look, I actually watched most of Vanderbilt's game last week, or at least was flipping back and forth against Auburn, and they didn't look great against Auburn. I'm not going to lie. Pavia was not playing his best. He looked maybe a little dinged up. Vanderbilt's running back looked a little dinged up. So if they play like that against South Carolina's defensive line, I think they're going to lose, but I don't think he's going to play like that. I'm going to go with Vanderbilt.
I think this game is just going to be an absolute rock fight.
Bloodbath.
And it's going to be beautiful. Give me the Commodores. I'm sticking with Vandy. They just keep making me love them more every week. I love Diego Pavia. I love this Vanderbilt team. I love Clark Lee. I love New Mexico State for bringing him over to us. I love Vanderbilt. Give me the Commodores. Give me the Doors.
Oh my God.
The new upper echelon of the SEC.
I can't believe I'm going to be the one out on an island on Shane Beamer's Gamecocks. What 30 seconds? What was it? How long was that video? What does 1 minute 43 seconds do to my heart to make me a believer in your defensive line?
They are good.
And just what you.
Diego Pavia is better.
All right, so I'll take South Carolina just to go against the fray. Do we even care? Mississippi State is at Tennessee. The Volunteers are 24.5-point favorite. We'll move on. They're at 6 o'clock on ESPN if you are sadistic. At 6:45, Oklahoma is at Missouri. This is your last chance, Missouri, at a quality win. Missouri is a 2.5-point road underdog, a home underdog.
That's crazy to me with how bad this Oklahoma team has looked.
Missouri's a home underdog to Oklahoma?
Oklahoma 2.5-point favorite.
Is Drew Pine playing?
Yeah, that's
What's
my
happening?
next question. That's my. Let me pull up the Thursday night.
That's the only logical thing that I can think of
availability
to
report for Thursday night.
Maybe Brady Cook is expected to be out because there's no reason Missouri should lose this game.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Missouri. No, Brady Cook is listed as questionable, so he's playing.
This is preposterous.
They had a bye week last week.
Yeah, this is go make some free money. Somebody.
You got Caden Green, probable. Logan Richard, questionable. Brady Cook, Nate Noel, questionable. That's that starting running back.
Yeah.
Mookie Cooper, doubtful. He didn't play against Alabama either. Khalil Jacobs out. He's that linebacker who's really good. So they still got some injuries, but
give me Missouri. Oklahoma's a bad football team.
Oklahoma still has all these wide receivers out. Jaden Green, Nick Anderson, Andrew Anthony. Yeah, Deion Burks is probable, so he might come back. So he's going to come back, and he's probably their best receiver. Katie, this line smells to the high heavens. Stinky line.
That's odd. But what does Vegas know that we don't know then? Because that really doesn't make sense. I don't know. I'm picking Missouri.
Let me see if it opened and moved. Let's see, because it opened.
There's something weird going on here.
It opened at it opened Missouri as a 1.5-point favorite. It has moved to Oklahoma as a 2.5-point favorite.
Did Brady Cook tweak something at practice this week?
No, I'm still. I'm taking the Elijah Drinkwitz. I'm taking Drinkwitz.
Yeah, until I find out that Brady Cook's not playing in this game, give me Missouri. If Drew Pine takes the field, all bets are off the table. I don't trust him to do anything. Missouri or Oklahoma could very well win this game if Drew Pine is on the field for Missouri. But with Brady Cook under center, no, they should not lose this game.
All right, and we got to finish it up right here on the Joe Gaither Show for the week. It's Football Friday, and it's time for number 11 Alabama at number 15 LSU. 6:30 on ABC, right there on your rabbit ears. Alabama is a 2.5-point favorite. It moved to 3 yesterday. Mason is back to 2.5. Katie Windham will be there in Death Valley covering for Bama Central, covering for us right there, Alabama Crimson Tide on SI. She's going to be leading our coverage with Hunter DeCiver and with Will Miller. So she's got the two hooligans to corral and to cover the game. Katie, what are your final thoughts? What's your pick? What are you feeling about Alabama's chances in roughly 30 hours or so?
I really don't know what to feel about this game. It's weird because it's a huge game for both teams as far as playoff stakes, and game day is going to be there. So like all of college football is going to be watching it, but it also doesn't feel like a big Alabama-LSU matchup. I don't know. Because I guess it's not they're not both in the top 5 or fighting to win the SEC West, which there is no SEC West anymore. But
you're only fighting for your life.
Yeah, they're both just battling to please, hopefully get in.
Yeah, I mean, their backs are always against the wall. I've picked Alabama the last 2 road games, and they've made me look like a fool both times. So, how about this? I'll go with Alabama to win, but not cover the 2.5. We're going to have a back-to-back 1-point victories in Death Valley.
Ooh-wee.
Flip sidelines.
That was tough.
Nuts. Oh, they would crumble.
I don't want to cover another close game. For those that don't know or realize or even think through this, close games for us are not fun because you can't. It's a very frantic writing pace when
it's just so stressful going one way or the other. I love that prediction, though. I think it's probably a strong prediction. Mason Woods, your final thoughts on Alabama-LSU?
Yeah, this is going to be a tough game. I think it may get a little bit shootouty potentially. LSU's defense, I think, is going to allow Alabama to move the ball offensively pretty much because they can't really stop anybody. And I think LSU has enough talent on offense to where they may be able to win some on offense and exploit Bama's defense a bit. So I think, we could maybe see ourselves looking at a high-scoring game here. But yeah, I like Alabama in this one. I think, while we have talked a lot about how bad Drew Pine played for Missouri last week, I still think getting that shutout is a huge confidence boost for the defense. And, they can take it into this week against a good offensive team and use a lot of that to their advantage. And I'm very excited. I'm very optimistic for what Kane Womack can do schematically this week.
Yeah, I think, okay. I like yours and Katie's perspective, and I think that it's going to be a little bit in between there. I think that Alabama's defense is going to give up some plays, but, man, I think you're probably going to be able to score as well. The total is 58.5. I think Katie's dead on that. I think Alabama probably wins but doesn't cover. My initial thought was 28-26, but I think that's just a little too low. I think it's going to end up being you tack a field goal on for Alabama. That's 31, and you kind of give the LSU just a little bit of edge, give them another field goal. I'm feeling 31-30. I think it's going to be really, really tight. It's just going to be about making plays down in and down out. And so, oh my gosh, don't go onto Twitter in the first drive and talk about fire this guy and bench that guy. It's going to be a long night. You just buckle up and be ready. I think that's going to be it's going to be a lot of fun. I know Katie and Hunter and Will have a lot of fun. They'll be bringing you coverage all night long down there in Baton Rouge. Make sure you subscribe to the Bama Central YouTube channel. They'll be giving you videos for no matter what happens after the game, probably some form or fashion. Definitely in the post-game press conferences for sure. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a huge weekend. Katie, I respectfully don't agree with you just in your assessment saying it doesn't quite feel like a big, maybe in the sense of, yes, the teams don't feel as elite. Yes, absolutely. I think you're right. Not a top 5 matchup, but it feels huge to me because you've kind of got, as Mason alluded to, the fate of Brian Kelly kind of hanging in the balance here. If you can win back-to-back games against Alabama and get yourself back in the playoff picture, he's going to be really back into their good graces. But if he loses, I don't know what happens. And then for Alabama, you've got really the fate of your first season under Kalen DeBoer. I think it's a massive week, and I'm feeling the weight of it a little bit. I'm looking forward to kind of it all playing out tomorrow. Let's finish real quick. I know we're pushed on time, but 2 sentences for everybody. Tonight, Alabama is back in action basketball in Coleman Coliseum. We're going to talk more about it on the All Things Bama podcast with Mason Woods, but we got to go into the weekend on the Joe Gaither Show with 2 sentences. Alabama basketball against Arkansas State, 7 o'clock. Mason Woods, what are your 2 thoughts, your 2 sentences, your 2 I'll
just give you 2 words, just LeBaron Philon. That's all you need to know.
Katie, are you excited? Game number 2 for Alabama basketball?
My 2 words would be Alabama dominates.
Woo! It's going to be a lot of fun.
Spicy. I like it.
More defense. More defense.
That's good.
It's kind of going to be what I'm going to stick with. And we'll get out of here for the day on that note. Stick with us. We'll cover Alabama's basketball game from Coleman Coliseum right there, BamaCentral.com as well. The team will be driving down. Katie, be safe. Keep the knuckleheads in line. We look forward to your coverage. Follow Katie Windham at Katie Windham _. Follow Mason Woods at MA_Woods_. I am at Joe Gaither 6. And this has been the Joe Gaither Show right here on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.